So we have Rod Kasai here with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited that we were able to make this work and get you on. So I'm going to jump in with just a couple random things here.
Sure.
So first off, you are a big sports fan.
I am,
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about how, like, your favorite sport, how you got into that.
Primarily, football was my first love. I grew up, in Chicago and lived directly across the street from the schoolyard. And back then, it's not like today. I mean, schoolyards were your social hubs, man. Everybody was there to play ball, this, that, or the other. I was a really undersized kid for a long time. So basketball being kind of what's king in Chicago, I didn't get picked too often for that. They would look at me and give me her. She was like taller than me. But once that first snow hit, the school ground would be covered, and that's when it was tackle football time.
Nice.
And that was when being, kind of small and quick and fast worked to my benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just always been a big student and fan of the game, and it was a big part of my life for a long time. I played in high school, and that led for me to be able to go to college and play through college. So football by far and away is my number one. But when you're when you're involved in sports, you meet other athletes, and you gain an appreciation for what they do and the work they put in and stuff. So in general, I just really respect the amount of work that goes into being an athlete, no matter what sport you play. It takes a lot of time and dedication and energy, and you make a lot of sacrifices to do it. Just nothing but respect for athletes.
Absolutely. Do you get to go to games and stuff still, like now as an adult?
Oh, sure.
Professionally?
Mm-hmm. I've actually probably been to more games here in Minnesota than I ever did in Chicago. I mean, Bears tickets are extremely expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And, there were times where they couldn't sell out the Metrodome.
Yep.
So, tickets were a lot more affordable, and as games in general were a little more accessible. But, we were talking earlier, my first job was working at Wrigley Field. So,
which is awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So cool.
First job.
Yeah.
I caught the bus on the corner there every day to go to school, and just kind of made sense that I get a job that I can get to kind of easily from home, or if I was coming straight from school. Mm-hmm. And so baseball is actually, I got a lot of exposure with that sport, and here in the Twin Cities I officiated sometimes. So.
That's awesome. I know. Speaking of sports and you officiating stuff, I remember running into you last summer, 2 summers ago, something like that. And I was playing a kickball game.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And I ran into you and you were like reffing or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
I was terrible, mind you.
Oh,
terrible.
You weren't that bad.
But it was so much fun. Like, I was kind of about going. And then all of a sudden, because I wasn't good when I was a kid. I'm not good as an adult.
No, you're
so
too
I was a
hard on
little
yourself.
iffy about even being there. And then all of a sudden I saw a Rod and I was so excited. Like, this is awesome.
It's kickball's fun. It can be fun.
Yeah.
Of course, you get guys that take it way too seriously.
Which is hilarious, being what it is.
You'd be surprised. Like, really, dude? This is rec league kickball, and you've got to wind up, and you're trying to throw curveballs, and you want to argue everything. Yeah, you'd be really surprised. You're not supposed to drink before the games, but everybody comes there, and sometimes that plays a role in how obnoxious people can be.
Oh, absolutely. That's not surprising at all. Is there a villain in like movies, TV, something like that you tend to find yourself rooting for?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of times I am drawn to villains because, while the protagonist is kind of drives the narrative a little bit, the antagonist, in my opinion, is usually what gives, especially a film, its personality. It's what gives it what's distinct, because you expect a hero or a good guy or a protagonist to kind of hit certain points in a storyline, but you have no idea what the villain's going to do.
Yeah.
And you know, like, you know, those Michael Keaton Batman movies. How do you usually distinguish the two? Oh, is that the one with the Riddler? Oh, no, it was the one with the Joker.
Right.
Oh, no, that was the one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my favorite villain of all time, I've kind of got three, but my favorite one that I saw myself in a little bit, was Simon Phoenix in Demolition Man. Wesley Snipes' character.
Okay.
Yeah.
The moment I saw it, I was like, I like this guy. Now, this
Yeah.
That guy's got an attitude.
Yeah, and you know, he was joyfully,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, kind of twisted or dark or what have you. But in terms of other ones, you ever see RoboCop?
I've seen the new one. I have not seen
You've
the original.
not seen the original?
Yeah.
Oh man, you have to see it.
I get told that a lot.
Clarence
I get
Boddicker.
told to see a lot of films.
I do. I really do. It's a pattern in my life.
The guy from the '70s show, I think his name's Kurtwood Smith.
Oh, yeah.
He plays the
Yes.
main bad guy in that, Clarence
Oh,
Boddicker.
really?
You've seen
Yeah.
it, right, Al?
Yeah.
And
Cool.
he's awesome.
Yeah.
You really, he's the movie, if you ask me.
That's awesome.
And then there's one guy that I kind of really, a much lesser known villain. There's a movie called Black Rain
Okay.
with Michael Douglas in it.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen it?
I haven't, no.
Alan, have you?
No.
It's about a cop who gets involved in this yakuza, which is the Japanese mafia kind of thing in New York, and he has to escort this guy back to Japan.
Mhm.
I think Osaka is where they are, and he's just he's everything you expect, but everything you don't expect out of a villain.
Mhm.
He's unpredictable. He's dangerous. He's focused. He's scary in certain ways because of how just laser focused he is on what he's trying to get done. I mean, he just carries and holds the screen incredibly, and he only has maybe 7 or 8 lines of dialogue in the whole movie.
Really?
He's awesome. I just screen presence, you know, that thing.
Yeah.
This guy totally has it.
Black Rain.
Absolutely, he's one of my favorite bad guys.
I'm going to have to add that to the list. That sounds really intriguing. Awesome.
It's been on cable lately, so
Has it?
or you know, like the Dish or whatever. If you ever see it in your program guide, I recommend checking it out. Like Andy Garcia's in it.
Oh, nice.
Kate Capshaw's in it.
Mhm.
But the main villain in it, I thought, yeah,
Awesome.
I like that guy.
Yeah. That's awesome, though. Okay, so the main question that I ask everyone before we jump into the reason we're here, do you happen to have a random, fun, silly, whatever talent that people may not know about?
You know, I used to be able to walk on my hands for quite a ways.
What?
Yeah, I mean, don't ask me to do it now. I am kind of talking from a while ago.
Okay.
But I used to be able to like kind of walk around on my hands for
That's
a
still
while.
really cool.
I could jump pretty high. Like looking at me, you wouldn't think it, but I used to be able to slam dunk a basketball.
Oh, nice.
Well, it's softball. My hands, I could never palm a basketball.
but you could slam dunk a softball.
I could catch an alley oop. I could palm like a softball. I used to be able to 360 and just kind of dunk it. Yeah. I used to be kind of proud of that. I wish cell phone cameras were out back then, because then I would have I would have totally been, hey, check this out. Look at this.
Right?
Or I'd bet people, like, you want to bet I can dunk? They'd probably look at me and be like, no. So make a little money that way.
There we go. That's really cool, though. Both of us.
Yeah, now I don't know. Like something I could do like right now. I don't know.
I think those totally count.
Okay.
Yeah.
Past
No,
accomplishments.
I'm looking forward to your new accomplishments too.
Yeah, what have you learned to do other than walk on your hands and slam dunk, which I will never
Like, what's
be
on
able
your
to
acting resume?
imagine.
Do you have any special talents there?
I do a lot. I do my own stunts usually.
There you go.
That's really cool.
And not that you get asked to do a ton
Right.
here,
Mhm.
but one of the earlier things that I did here in Minnesota was a web series pilot called Breaking Good, which was written and directed by Ryan Stranyard.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had to get tripped, fall down some stairs, got hit by a car a few times. Yeah, I mean,
got hit by a car a few times. That just
we
sounds
did a
bad.
few takes of it. In fact, I mean,
You know what? Get up and do that again, Rod. Come on, bring the Chevy back in.
Didn't look believable. You really gotta own it.
we can go outside, drive the cars, just don't drive it more than, 7 miles an hour or so.
Right.
I'll jump into the windshield for you. That's fun to me. That kind of stuff is fun to me.
Absolutely. Would you do if there were a film you were doing and they said, okay, we need you to do this stunt, but it's a little more intense than 7 miles an hour running into the car kind of a thing. Do you think you'd still be up for it? Or?
As long as I would want to see a walkthrough and kind of look at what kind of safety contingencies are around and what they're kind of doing.
Right.
But more than likely. I mean, I'm kind of by nature a little bit of a risk taker, so it's funny, I was just having this conversation with Dave Buchanan. He's like, hey, we're gonna be doing some stuff and there's no insurance.
Insurance.
Don't worry, man. He's like, there's no insurance, Rod. And I'm like,
Safety net's down.
as long as it's not I'm not really sure. I'd have to see it, and then but chances are more than likely I'd go for it. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm kind of just wired that way.
In for the adventure.
It's a big part of why I love filmmaking, man. It is an adventure,
Speaking of which, then,
Yeah.
what got you started in acting?
kind of to begin with, it started for me maybe around 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really only because, like I said, I lived directly across the street from school. So there was an after-school program that our school had partnered with Wisdom Bridge Theater in Chicago. And, it was kind of part of an initiative to get arts more, accessible to schools and stuff. So, they had people from that theater kind of, teach acting 101 kind of thing after school. And, it was like I said, if I didn't like it, I'd just go home, walk across the street or anything. Mm-hmm. But, there's some, you ask around, hey, you gonna go, that kind of thing. And, there's some cute girls that were gonna go. So.
There you go. So you had to show up.
Yeah, I figured why not? I mean, like, if it sucked or whatever, I'd leave. But, it's just something to do. Maybe more time to hang out with your friends at school. Because although I lived across the street, some of my friends didn't really live nearby.
Right.
So it was kind of, like an extension of your school day, kind of like gym class, just you can just hang out I think part of their selling point on it was like at some point we'll do a performance for the school. So, I mean, that means you get out of class, right? So, it's win-win. So that's kind of what got me started. But when I started, I really took a liking to it.
Yeah. When you started, I'm just jumping around this list, I'm sorry. When you started, did you think of this as being a potential career path, or were you really just, even like throughout high school, were you just kind of like, well, I'll do this for now, and then when I graduate, like I'm sticking with, say, football or something like that? It's a good question. It kind of, in Chicago, we didn't have any. It's K-8 and then high school. We didn't have junior highs or anything. Right.
So you were in the same building from kindergarten through 8th grade, and
wow.
then So you really got to know your classmates, and there was no separation until you went to high school. So I think it helped that those early acting classes, you're doing it already with a bunch of people you kind of already know. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. And
I do remember coming home one day and being like, yeah, I could do this. But at that time, I didn't really know anything about filmmaking. This was, more theater based, which I think most beginning acting classes are. But I can't say that I was really nursing that ambition through high school. Sports kind of became my passion in high school, and really seemed like the most realistic conduit to go to college, because I mean, otherwise I don't know if I'd have been able to go.
Right.
You know, we didn't have a whole lot of money, and you know, I didn't really have anybody in front of me that had a clear, you got to do this to get to this, to get to this, because you know, my parents pretty much got together right out of high school. So there weren't a lot of people in my family that went to college that I had immediate access to.
Right.
And, you know, at that point, it was, you know, it's really being drilled into you about, you know, hey, it's college and education is important. You know, I think things are a little bit different these days. But, you know, that was like the natural progressions. And I didn't see acting really taking me there at that point, really. I mean, I would have an occasional interest in it. I remember I used to go to a youth group that was held at a Lutheran church, and we would basically go there to play basketball. But part of the deal was, you know, at the midway point, we're going to have to discuss, you know, the Bible and that kind of thing. And
time out to talk about God.
Pretty much, man. I mean, you'd go in there and it'd be
Halftime.
open gym, and you would you know, play ball and be like, all right, everybody, come on in. And the guys that ran it were really great. Rich Anderson, I mean, they were just really good guys. And, you know, it gave young kids like myself and other guys I knew who were maybe even from rougher neighborhoods to, you know, a chance to come in and get some positivity in their life. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? Which for some of the guys in there was maybe the most positive thing they were going to have going on all week. But at that group, there was someone who worked for a talent agency. And, you know, just in, you know, I've always been a fairly social guy. So she recommended I come down and like audition for something. And I didn't, you know, think anything of it. But I went down there, and it just so happened I had like a monster toothache. Like it was, you know, I ended up having to get a root canal and stuff done. But so I gave a really shitty audition, and it was just like, couldn't focus on anything. But that was pretty much the extent of acting in high school, was just that one time. And, you know, I look back at it now, and I think about, damn, you know, it would have been good to have had that, you know, and kind of get in there. But, you know, films and stuff would kind of come later, and, you know, a little bit of modeling and stuff like that. But while in high school, no, I can't really say that I was thinking I'm gonna be in. I wasn't in theater or anything like that.
Yeah. What eventually brought you to moving to Minnesota and deciding to then pursue that?
Well, I actually got started in acting in Chicago. So you know, it was kind of a thing when I'd come back from school. You know, it was a good way to earn a little bit of money. At that point, you know, just, you know, I ran track in the spring as well. It's hard to say this. I'm not trying to be egotistical. I mean, I guess I was in good shape. So, you know, literally an older lady saw me at the beach and was like, here, you should call this number and talk to these people. And, you know, I kind of didn't think anything of it, and, you know, kind of followed up on it at some point. And it was like, you know, that's kind of what got me started, was into just the business in general. Was just, you know, real small print modeling gigs and stuff. Here, hold this beach ball. Take your shirt off. Smile. It's great. It's sunny. It's warm. All right. Cut. You know, and then, you know, it's
pure
like 2-3
acting
hours.
talent right
Yes.
there.
It was more modeling, but it was just, to me, it was easy. You know,
of course.
3-4 hours, you're going to make $600 or something.
Exactly.
And, you know, it would take me 2 months to make that at my part-time job. So it was like an easy way to get a little bit of summer money. But I actually started in films for the Hollywood stuff that would come to Chicago. And between, you know, like I said, I would do that kind of thing in between school seasons. And, you know, having gone to school in South Dakota, you know, it's a long story how I ended up in Minneapolis, but the short answer is it's kind of what's in between.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the midway point between where I went to school and where I'm from.
Right. Well, speaking of which, then back to kind of the start of things, what was your first film role, and when was that? Like on camera.
On camera. Technically, my first role was as a student in a film called Light It Up that came out like right around 99, 2000. And I'm playing the student of Mr. Knowles, who was played by Judd Nelson. of Breakfast Club fame.
Oh, wow.
The famous rebel. Well, in this film, is a little bit after Breakfast Club. He's a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of about these kids that took over a school. Usher was in it. Vanessa Williams. It's kind of gained a little bit of a cult following from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like technically my first role on camera, but
Sure.
my main job on that production was as a stand-in. So what we filmed with me being a student was just like a day, half a day. But I was able to work every day on the film as part of camera crew, as a stand-in and also as a photo double.
I've done that before, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Actually, the film starts off with me, the first 2 or 3. It's actually me playing one of the other characters. Dressed up as a double or whatever. But
Nice.
So that was the first one.
Cool. What role in filmmaking have you maybe not taken on yet, but maybe really want to try next?
Well,
Or
like we were
that
just discussing villains, I really would like the shot at doing a bad guy. Not just a bad guy, but like somebody you can't, you really want to see this person get.
I don't know if you can hit Simon Phoenix again in any film. I haven't seen that type of character before.
I wouldn't try to, I don't think, to be honest with you, because it's such a favorite character of mine. I wouldn't want to.
I know.
I mean,
It has Taco Bell in it and everything. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Simon was badass, man. But a despicable kind of guy, somebody that will make an audience member, if I do a good enough job with it, kind of speak out loud.
Yeah.
Like you watch something, you're like, that motherfucker. Ooh, I hope he gets it. That
could be a lot of fun.
It would be a challenge, and that would be. So I haven't done it yet. I haven't really been asked to do it, but that would be. I would really like a shot at something like that.
Well,
Absolutely.
look at like Denzel Washington when he did Training Day the first time. Before that, it was like kind of more. He's the good guy,
That's a great example, actually.
Yeah, and then that came out, and I was just like, "That's not Denzel that I
knew." And that's the one that won him an Oscar. But I think when his career is said and done, not just for the Oscar, because I think he won one for Glory too, as a supporting actor. But as far as his memorable roles, I mean, I think it's going to be right up there with Malcolm X.
Yeah,
it's just he's great in it.
Oh yeah, that he did a great job, and obviously him and that filmmaker keep making films. So
yeah, it's Fuqua, right, Antoine?
Yeah, something. Fuqua.
Yeah, I remember he did a lot of music videos I liked in the.
Then they did the Equalizer and Equalizer 2.
That's right. Yeah, he is coming out with a second one, right?
It's already out. Yeah.
Is it already? Jeez,
it's been in and out already, and it's great. It's good, if not better than the original.
Really?
Which is really saying something, because that's not common.
No,
right.
Not at all.
And that's exactly why Denzel didn't want to do it, because he didn't want to get into a franchise thing. And he said if he's going to do it, it has to be realistic, basically. So,
nice.
Well, as realistic as
it's real.
Right.
Equalizer gets.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's
I know
cool.
It looked
I'll check
really
those
good.
out.
Do you have any other roles that you've taken on in the filmmaking process outside of acting, like whether it's writing, producing, directing, anything like that, or anything that you would want to try?
I haven't really yet, but coincidentally, I am going to meet. I have some things going on this week, but I am meeting with someone who wants to rewrite a script that he's kind of already got out there, and I'm unsure if I'll be in it or if I'd be right to be in it, but I do plan on getting together with him, and it's a Western, and
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is. It is an interesting genre. I thought it was really interesting that he kind of reached out and was like, hey, I've got this script. I'd love to get together, and you want to maybe go over it and maybe think about rewriting it with me. So yeah, I do plan on doing that. But as far as anything that I've done to present date, no. I mean, I've thought about writing things, but for the things that I would like to write, I mean, realistically, would the money be there to make something like that for my present circumstances? I don't know. So, it's kind of difficult to to think of or come up with a concept when you already have to think of the filmmaking constraints. You know, if you realistically want to get it done.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, then you kind of have to shrink down your thinking, and you know, that takes time, and you know, you kind of got to keep coming back. So I'm totally gonna get together. I won't mention his name because I'm not sure if he'd appreciate it or not. Mm-hmm. But that is in the near future. Yeah. Hopefully something comes of it. But just the process of attempting it, I think, would be a learning experience for me. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. Do you have a favorite, like, actor or actress, or not only to watch, but maybe even that might, like, inspire you as an actor yourself?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, that's actually, I think if you ask any actor that question, it's like a dangerous question.
Right.
It's kind of like asking what your favorite song is, or what your favorite, you know, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song? Oh, my God, there's so many. In terms of, you know, one of the first actors I remember, and I mean, I was a little kid when I realized who he was, because his work kind of preceded me. But, you know, Robert De Niro I'm a huge fan of. I think, you know, anybody these days who's only recognized maybe his last 10 years would not understand this is one of the greatest film actors anyone's ever seen.
Yeah.
And I believe the movie I first saw him in was King of Comedy. And I was a little kid, man. I'm couldn't have been older than like 6 or 7 or something. And that's when acting kind of got on my radar to even understand what it was.
Right.
I saw him in a movie after that, and my sister was like, you know, that's the same guy. I'm like, really? Because if you've ever seen King of Comedy, he plays just a kind of a putz. Mm-hmm. You know, like somebody you've actually probably met in your life. Mm-hmm. And then you go to see another movie, and, you know, he's a badass, and he's, you know, kind of volatile. You know, De Niro's kind of famous for slapping people around. And I was like, that's the same guy. So that kind of put that on my radar. I'm a big Toshiro Mifune guy. Mm-hmm. I would say that's probably the actor that I was like, man, that would be cool to make a movie, you know. My dad was a big Kurosawa guy, and kind of, you know, when I was a kid, you know, VCRs and stuff, that was like his new toy. Mm-hmm. So I didn't live with him, so when I would see him on the weekends and stuff, we'd spend time watching films and stuff. We'd rent like James Bond movies, and, you know, he was excited to get, you know, movies like Yojimbo and Sanjuro and Redbeard, and you know, my favorite's probably Throne of Blood, but he just had that cool screen presence. Mm-hmm. And, you know, quite a number of diverse roles. So he was a big influence. Was a big fan of Robin Williams before he passed.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that he could, you know, I mean, the guy from Mork and Mindy to dramas and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I really liked 1 Hour Photo, where he's kind of a creepy bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just didn't think there was nothing he couldn't do. I don't use the word genius too often, but I really felt that guy was kind of a genius.
I fully agree. Yeah.
Wesley Snipes. I'm a big fan of Wesley Snipes. I think you mentioned him, and not just for the Simon Phoenix role or anything, but
that's over the top a bit. Yeah.
Well, I think most people think of Blade, you know, and that's it.
Yeah.
But if you look at his body of work, man, he's done everything, and he's done it well. He's been an action hero. He's been an iconic bad guy, not just Simon, but, you know, Nino Brown is a classic in New Jack City. He does comedy, Major League, Tu Wong Fu, and he was, you know, a great dramatic actor. You know, Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, and he's in a really good underrated film called The Water Dance, which is about a rehab center for people who have recently been paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
It was really good, really good. A lot of people haven't seen it, but I mean, like I said, if you look at his body of work, comedy, drama, good guy, bad guy, Wesley does it, and he does it well. And nobody really seems to mention him. Like to me, Denzel's obvious, you know.
Right.
You don't even need to mention Denzel. That goes without saying.
Well, Wesley Snipes was kind of big in the 90s, so it was kind of like, that was kind of his decade, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, he did have some stuff in the 80s, but yeah, the 90s kind of... Well, he went to jail for a while, too. Probably
Was that what happened? Okay.
But, yeah. And, you know, I like actresses, too. I don't just look at... I look at the work, not just the gender of the person doing it. You know, people I think... One of my favorite actresses is Glenn Close. Everything she's in, she's phenomenal, man.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's playing a Disney cartoon character or, you know, Fatal Attraction.
Vice President.
Which one was it? Air Force One. Right? Yeah. And I love watching Jessica Lange work, man. I mean, she is
brilliant.
Just, man, kind of in awe of that. You know, I think you mentioned actresses and everybody, he was a common go-to. Like
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
Everybody mentioned, and she's great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But to me, it's kind of like a crime that Jessica Lange isn't mentioned more. You know, you watch her work, she's just, man.
And she really transforms. Like, there are movies that I'll be watching and I don't realize that it's her. And I'm just mesmerized by this character. And then all of a sudden later I realize it is. And I'm like, holy shit, that was incredible.
Oh, man. And, you know, like, and I'm sure you guys probably agree, but like once you start making films, sometimes, you know, it takes effort to take that fake making goggles kind of off and look at a film again as just an audience member.
Yeah.
So like when I watch her, she's like, it seems like it has to be exhausting what she does. I mean, when you assume that there's multiple takes of you know what you end up getting in the end, my God, she has to really put herself out there and then through the ringer for that.
Absolutely.
Nothing but respect for that.
Speaking of that process, is there anything about like the acting process or the filmmaking process in general that you really enjoy and appreciate doing?
I kind of enjoy it all, to be honest with you. I'm happiest when I'm working. You know, I really like that film is such a collaborative thing. I mean, it's different from theater. Theater's kind of a more of immediate gratification.
Yeah.
But for me personally, there's something about all that collective energy kind of coming together and with the sole purpose of trying to make something good. And, you know, I mean, if you just look at the credits at the end of a film, there's a lot of people that go into making a film. And every one of those people are making sacrifices and really putting their heart and soul into whatever role they've got to do, all with the same purpose of making it so that the movie can be as good as it can be. So that aspect of it I enjoy a lot, but probably that no 2 days are the same is probably, you know, that's huge to me. I mean, if you've ever had a job where you're in the same building, the same, you know what I mean, every day and nothing really changes. I mean, what's better than, you know, every day being you might be at a different location, and even, you know, once you get the shot, it's over with. It's on to the next shot. So lack of monotony is probably, you know, just huge.
I often compare it to football, going back to your first thing. Yeah,
I would agree.
You're often in a new location, working with a different team, maybe. You know,
no matter how it goes one game, the next game could be completely different.
Yeah.
I lay it out like your head coach is your director, your actors are your players, you know, and you have kind of like Spike Lee talks about that with basketball too, but but it's like he used to call them players, I guess, maybe he still does, I don't know, but you know, it's just all that. And then hopefully you have money, which is the upstairs guys. So, and hopefully they don't get too involved, you know.
Right. They let you do. Yeah. Let the coach.
And then your crew is all your assistant coaches, trainers, everything like that. It's just like, it's this whole production of getting things done in a day, you know. And you never know what you'll get. So
I think that's a great analogy, actually.
Yeah. And then I guess the Super Bowl would be your Oscars or something.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know. A screening, getting it to the screen.
Recognition for, you know, the work that you've done.
Yeah, and trying to sell out a stadium worth of viewers to actually watch it. So
that analogy gets stronger and stronger.
I know.
Keep going. It's like, I totally see.
And then it goes into TV rights. No, I'm just kidding.
Distribution. Yeah.
I do like that you mentioned, even though like if you sit and actually watch the credits, which I don't think most people do.
No.
Like all of the names that are on that screen. Like I try and make a point when I go to see a movie, unless I have to get out of there for some reason, like to watch all of the credits, because people don't realize how much work every single one of those people put in.
Disney's kind of changed that with the Marvel thing. Like you have to wait till all the credits are done, and then you get a little something.
Take that, people.
So
That's
maybe
true.
filmmakers need to think about that.
Exactly.
And it always, like, I kind of get it for time constraints, but it always, like, one thing that irritates me is when, on certain networks, when the show ends, the credits just you can't possibly
and it like
read
minimizes into the bottom right, and then you
that
see
reminds
them.
me of a Simpsons episode. It's like, that's my name. It's like,
right.
Brad, that's not your name. It's like they pause it as it's scrolling super fast, and it's like, see, that says Bart Simpson.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, the set decorator and the wardrobe people, it's, somebody would see that, hey, that had some really great costumes, and maybe somebody's like, well, who did that? And then bam, the credits.
Yeah. Gone.
You can look it up on the internet. We know you will. That's how you do that. Have you, have you progressed in your career as you have thought up to this point? Or how would you kind of reflect on that now?
That's a good question. Like I said, I kind of got the benefit of leapfrogging a lot of early stages, kind of, really just by luck. Like we were just saying, the first film role, that experience of being a stand-in was immeasurable, man, because, I didn't start on indies or small student films. The first few films I did were worked on, at least, were these, where you're trying to get to, you know what I mean? So seeing how that machine works, the politics involved in that, all the logistical things that kind of go into that, because I think that's, a lot of people who maybe aren't in the business or just kind of come in with a fresh perspective on filmmaking don't realize what a monster it can be, how slow it can be, how much attention to detail and how much time that takes and stuff. So when I kind of got in or started, I kind of got in seeing the whole horizon, and I didn't really have any expectations for doing this. I think to come in with limited experience, and to have expectations, in my opinion, is be a little arrogant. There's just so many factors that go into, you getting a part or you getting a role. It really is the only business where it's still kind of legal for you to not get the job based on your physical attributes. How you look, what gender is,
how you perform.
Well, talent. The thing is, it's like, I think every actor out there knows a lot of talented people that don't work.
Yeah.
And that reason can be anything from as simple as, I don't know.
Like I said, that goes back to the football analogy where you draft a player based on their attributes, maybe. Just like in casting, you have to select an actor that is that one right role, even though there could be dozens that fit,
Yeah, but it can also, I think I get what you're saying. We're it can be, you're perfect for this role, but I don't really like how tall you are. I want you to be shorter, or
right.
I don't really like that you weigh too much, or you don't weigh enough, or you're not quite bulky enough, or something like
or
that.
Your
Like
teeth
it could
are a
be,
little crooked.
Yeah. And then there's somebody who's not necessarily as talented, but they look perfect in exactly how they're thinking.
Yes.
And so they're like, we're going to go with that. Because we can make it work.
Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I understand why those decisions are made.
Right.
I don't think anybody feels good about making those decisions based on that criteria.
Right.
But especially in commercials, you're trying to convey a message in very little time.
Yeah.
During a spot where most people, if you're watching a program, might be getting up to go somewhere, you know what I mean? Go to the fridge or whatever. So you have to really get something across in a very short amount of time. And human beings are primarily visual creatures. So you can send a lot of subconscious messages just on the presentation of who you're looking at that moment. So I understand why those decisions are made sometimes, but it can be very discouraging when you're not getting the work based on something you can't control.
Right. And that other element is the back end. Like, how will it sell? And that's where stars win out over no names, because you probably are the most talented for the job, but this person can sell, you know, and that's what makes it to investors. That's what makes sense to investors' money, and that's what drives any business. So.
Absolutely. Star power. I mean,
Even, and I don't know if this is true, but I read or heard during an interview or something at one time, and I can't think of her name now, but the girl who plays Sansa Stark on Game of Thrones. I heard that she had stated that she got the role, or partly why she got the role, is because she had such a huge following on like Twitter or Instagram or something like that, whatever was out at the time. Like, she somehow had this huge following, and they were like, oh, this is a great way to get this out. We could use that. And so they like put her in that role. And so, I mean, she did great in her audition, but she also had that extra thing that they thought could help really sell it and push it.
Yeah. That's social media, it really is integrated into the business quite a bit now. Like, for me personally, I was really averse to getting on social media. In fact, really the only real reason, I was like the last person I knew to even get on Facebook. I've only been on it like 3 or 4 years. And the biggest reason was people were saying, hey, dude, if you're going to be in this is you got to do it. I had to get my arm twisted into creating an Instagram.
Got to have some skin in the game. You can't just,
Well, I mean, they were right, just as a source of information.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and community, social media has been useful for that. But, when you hear people talk about things, especially the folks out in Hollywood, that Instagram thing, it seems to be a vital component. Yeah. And, for better or worse, it's kind of the way it's done now. And in some ways, I think that's being a little lazy. You know what I mean? Where, but I kind of get the logic behind it, but I also feel, well, if you feel that strongly in your product or your project, spend more time promoting it. I mean, why are you relying on your talent's base to just promote it? At the end of the day, it's not a guarantee anybody, I think that somebody who has a strong product or has a good marketing campaign is going to go a lot further than just somebody who has, X amount of followers on social media. Right. That'll put it on their radar. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, if that trailer doesn't look interesting, I don't give a shit who's in it. Nobody's going to go see it. Right. So, and that's what I'm saying. In some ways, I think it's lazy, but I do understand the logic behind it. Especially, if somebody's like, well, this person has 300 followers on Instagram. This person has 3,000. Yeah. Maybe we don't have the budget, so that makes sense, I suppose. But, I don't know. It's, in a perfect world, the talent wins out rather than, who can, because I mean, that's a job in itself, man, to be on social media like that.
It really is.
Manage all of that stuff. Like, I'm not on Twitter or anything like that. Not even interested in it, to be honest with you. But
I don't, me either.
All right, Rod. I have kind of a interesting question to ask you. It's been about 3 years since Oscar's So White, and I think this year since like movies like The Black Klansman came out. I got to ask you like more about, as an actor who is, I assume, African American partially, or.
Well, I'm just what I would call mixed. Which is part of the reason why I think I thought it would be something that people in my life, pretty much all my life, have been fairly obsessed with. Not to say that you are anything, but society, in my opinion, American society is obsessed with race. Before I even had a concept of what race was, it was kind of, in my face at school. Growing up, we were in a less politically correct time than we kind of are now, even though I feel we regressed in the last few years. One of the first questions out of everybody's mouth, whoever met me, was, what's your name? What are you? Where are you from?
Yeah.
And that really varies on who's asking. You know what I mean?
I get that all the time.
I bet. But I mean, it's like, some people would be, hey man, I hope, what nationality are you? Or other, like I said, it depends on who's asking. Like most black folks, when they would see, the question it's like, what else are you? It's like they could tell I'm black, but they could tell there's other things in there too.
Sometimes I answer I'm an American, but then they're like, oh no, but what are you?
Absolutely. Have you ever gotten when you're like, you don't really know the person, you're not really comfortable going there with that person in particular, and they're still trying to feel it out, and it's like, okay, I can't even talk to you because even if I'm talking small talk with you, your whole objective just is about categorizing me so that you can decide in your mind who I am rather than just listen to what the fuck is coming out of my mouth. You know what I mean? And when that's been your life, your whole life, you've got a very good instinct for it. You can see it coming. You can tell when that's what people are trying to do. And, I'm kind of an antagonist by nature. So if I don't really like your approach and you're being kind of a dick about it, or just, I feel the motives are less than just out of simple curiosity, of which I'm always fine. I'm like, I'll fuck with you. I'll say all kinds of shit just to watch you squirm a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's my way of making the point of, is it really that important to you?
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, if I tell you that I'm part Cherokee, does that really make a difference on whether I tell you I'm Puerto Rican or anything? You know what I mean? And if it does, that tells me a lot about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And going back to my question then, like with that all in mind, how has that affected you in the acting community, or have you been categorized as a certain type of actor then, or how is that going then, maybe when you first started to now?
That's a great question. I try personally not to think about it too much, other than the fact that it is going to come up. I like I said, in my real life, in my regular life, growing up till now, I've realized that I'm ethnically ambiguous to a certain degree to some people. And the bottom line is that some people have a good eye for ethnicity and other people don't. And I don't fault the people who don't. Now, don't get me wrong. But in my real life, I've been mistaken probably, other than, being black, but, people have thought I'm Filipino. I'm not. People have thought I'm Cambodian. I'm not. People have thought I'm Middle Eastern. I'm not. The most common thing I've been mistaken for in my life has been Latino, actually. And, by Latinos, that's what's funny. And it's, I couldn't tell you how many times somebody's walked up to me on the street just speaking Spanish. And
really?
My Spanish is really poor, but I'll be like, no habla español. You don't speak Spanish? It's like, motherfucker, why didn't you just come up to me in English and ask me that? We are in the United States. But I kind of get it, because at those times, what I've noticed is that your circumstances where you are and who you're kind of around kind of dictate what people see in that. Mm-hmm. And, the hairstyle I have or the facial hair I happen to be wearing at the moment, I seems to be a motivating factor on what people are assuming I am. And, so as an actor, I felt that would be, would be a positive, because I could play Latino. I'm very familiar with the Latino culture. I can play African American. I can play Asian, because I'm familiar with those cultures. And, just the blessings of what you kind of get by default. Like, everybody's kind of pushing towards diversity, or at least expressing the importance of it, because it is. For me, that's existed in my life by default, naturally. So for me to not see it, or to not have it be integrated into anything, is what's foreign to me, just coming from a diverse background, and kind of, the neighborhood I grew up in was very diverse. So, as I've traveled, I've come to really appreciate that because when you're growing up, you think everybody kind of grows up similar. And then you see just how dissimilar, like, oh, wow, I really should be thankful for this because some people just don't have any exposure. So you can't be angry at those people for not knowing something that they never had a chance to learn. But in film or in acting in general, I'm sure it does affect certain things. Some people would look at me for a certain role and be like, well, he's not black looking enough. Or, well, no, he doesn't look like that. Or, no, he's not that. No, to a certain extent, I totally get casting actors for roles that are of their ethnicity. But that's part of the skill and part of what being an actor is to be able to step out of that and still portray it truthfully. And some people have been, there have been a lot of successful examples you can point to. I mean, a lot of failures too. But, it is a bit of a thing when, to touch on what we were saying earlier, somebody wants to cast something diversely, or, wants to cast their project with some diversity in it. But then they get into this mental game of, well, I have to tweak and change things. I don't know enough black people. I don't know enough Spanish people. Am I, so then you end up looking at some shit on the page that looks fucking ridiculous. You're like, come on, man. What is this? Jive Talk 101? What the fuck is this? Nobody talks like this.
Yeah.
And I've seen some guys, sometimes, especially in smaller budgeted films, your writer and your director are the same person. Now, I'm always respectful of that because, that's somebody's vision from page to screen, But also at the same time, sometimes they're some of those guys are very or ladies are very fragile about that. You're like, this might have sounded right in your head, but this shit ain't gonna work, man. Nobody talks like this.
Yeah.
And at that point, where you would think they would trust an actor who kind of does that, that's kind of where the actor comes in, I feel, is to bring humanity to, what started off as a vision in your head. And they don't want to change anything. Like, no, this is how I want it, and this is right. And you're like, well, do you want the shit to be how you want it, or do you want it to be good?
Yeah.
Which, as actors, I think a lot of us are always kind of fighting the self-conscious thing of, not necessarily self-conscious, but you want to be able to bring what you have to the table without crossing into that territory, because it's kind of a cliche that that actors are divas. You know what I mean? Like, they think it's all about them. They're always trying to make it all about them. And don't get me wrong, I've met some actors who are like that. But also at the same time, the actor, while the filmmaker only knows, and the writer sometimes only know one way of writing, one way of, just they're within their own mechanism. A lot of times I think they kind of dismiss what the actor brings to the table in that realm as well, because the actor's worked a number of different ways, because he's worked with a number of different filmmakers, a number of different writers. And a good actor will kind of like a snowball rolling hill, accumulate that. And what they have to offer will expand and become bigger. And really, their input can be very valuable to a film. Good directors, I think, acknowledge this and use it, or at least are open to using it. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important thing, is to being open. But sometimes they don't, and you end up with a script with all the good intentions that just fucking fails because they're inflexible to how they see that in their head, and race is a big part of that, I think. I'm sorry, I might have gotten away from the question a little bit. In general, I think it's a mistake, when you see people struggling to write roles for certain. My thing is, man, just write it. Respect that the audience will have the intelligence, and that somewhere in between writing it and it being completed as a final product, that is actually a minor thing. It'll get hashed out. So write it how you would write it any other way, and just cast it diverse, with some diversity to it. You don't have to write for necessarily. I mean, there's certain times where that's appropriate, but for the most part, just write it how you would write anything, and just cast it with some diversity to it. The actors, and it'll get worked out. You don't. It's kind of insulting to write to a type when you don't even know what you're really even talking about.
Absolutely. So with all of the different roles that you've had, and you've played in the different, like you were just saying, different directors and writers write much differently, and they have their specific way of doing it. Do you have a specific role that you've actually really enjoyed portraying and playing?
I think for the most part, I like most of them. The cliche is my favorite job is the next one. My favorite role is the next one. It's just cliche, but for me, that's kind of true. There have been certain characters that I really enjoyed. We just did a web series called Fem 101, where I play a kind of smarmy politician who gets caught up in a sex scandal, and so he enrolls in a feminism class, kind of just as a public relations thing. He was fun to play because he's such a unknowing chauvinist in a lot of ways. He's not mean-spirited or ill-intentioned about it. He's just really that clueless. That was a lot of fun to play, and it was for a short film, but I really enjoyed Half Smile, mainly because it was just written so well. Owen Royce wrote that, and Owen is, if you're familiar with his work, not just a good screenwriter, I think he's an exceptional writer.
Yeah.
Very, very good. I mean, when you can read something on the first rip and you see it and it just makes sense and it clicks, that's my kind of barometer for like, wow, this is really well written. So then, how can I make that work becomes what it's about. But it's always great when it just clicks. You know what I mean? Everything on the page makes sense.
Yeah, that's one of those films where it did, I think, just kind of all click. And with that, I'll jump to what you were saying, the next project. What is next for you?
I have a couple of commercial things lined up. But pretty much, at this point, we're kind of entering, the slow time in the industry. Not just here, but pretty much everywhere. Yeah. Getting together and kind of going over that Western and maybe rewriting and seeing if maybe there's, whether or not it'd be appropriate for me to act in it. But aside from that, I get a lot of people say, well, hey, I want to do this. And then it's like, okay, well, talk to me. And, everybody talks, I believe it when it's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm always open to listen or maybe do something else. But once that ball's in motion is when I actually believe it. Prior to that, to me, it's, it's talk and it's great. And everything starts as talk. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from contacting me or anything like that. But
speaking of contacting you, so for any of our listeners that are intrigued and want to reach out to you or maybe see some of your work, how can they contact you or even maybe find you on social media or if you have a webpage?
Depending on the type of work, you could contact one of several agencies in town. If, depending on the client, More Creative, Wayman, Meredith, Model and Talent. However, if you were looking to contact me personally, which is usually how it's done, at least with films and stuff, I don't have a webpage or anything like that. You can find me on Facebook. And I did get my arm twisted into creating an Instagram account.
Oh.
A week ago. Yeah, I mean, people just kept telling me, like, dude, get on it. You're
Happy holidays, Rod. Enjoy social media at its finest.
But that would be at actor Rod K. So actor Rod K, one word.
Okay. And then is there something that you want people to eventually remember you by? Or like when they're done working with you or just overall?
I'd like to think that, I haven't had that role to be remembered by yet. I think I'm kind of looking for that. I mean, I am in this to expand and to do bigger and more things. I mean, I'm not just in it to act locally or regionally, although I'm more than happy to do that as well. I like to work, period.
Yeah.
So, I would like to think that at the end of the day, a filmmaker's going to feel like, I was there, man. I showed up and I was there for you. I'll go as far as it takes, within reason,
yeah.
To get you to make, for you to have what you want. And, when I leave a production or when it closes, I want that person to feel like, hey man, this guy there wasn't anything I asked of him that he didn't at least try to give me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, as far as locally, but as far as for more of a audience perspective, I'd like to think that that it hasn't quite happened yet. Although, in terms of like what's next, there is a movie that I am excited about that should be coming out soon called Over There. A lot of local talent is in that, but we also recently got Ron Perlman and Billy Zane attached to the film.
Oh, wow.
Which is exciting. I think it's a great story. World War I is one of those wars that, isn't really well covered. And a lot of people aren't aware that African Americans fought in that war as well. And I think it's a great story. It's written and directed by Luke Schulze. And I'm excited for that one. I don't have a big role in that one, but I think my feeling about it was that the role that I have in it is central to the narrative. So I'm excited for that.
No kidding.
Rod, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for
I'm really glad that
we
got together and did this. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for Film in Minnesota this time. We'll see you guys again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening to our podcast.
We appreciate you joining in.
We run a show every other week.
And if you are in film and are interested in being on the show with us and being our guest, you can reach us in a few different places. We do have an email. It is filminminnesota@gmail.com, as well as on Instagram or Facebook. Our name is, believe it or not, Film in Minnesota. So thanks for joining in.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.